everyone. I think we're ready to get started here. I'm Jessica Michael, and I serve as the marketing manager for EPE. I want to thank you all for joining Electric Power Engineers for this webinar discussing NERC registrations and how functional registrations interact with one another. We hope to share some helpful information with you and welcome questions and discussions in the chat. So please feel free to enter those at any time, and JC will answer them at the end of the webinar. I also wanted to let you know that today's webinar will be recorded and we will share it on our website, epeconsulting.com, and on social media in case you'd like to reference it or share it with your colleagues later. I'm pleased to introduce you to JC Culberson, our Director of NERC and Regulatory Compliance. JC boasts a wealth of experience in the areas of NERC and regulatory compliance, transmission operations, RTO and ISO operations, and planning, ERO operations with extensive NERC compliance consultant experience related to transmission operator, reliability coordinator, balancing authority, transmission owner, transmission planner, generation owner, and generation operator functional entities. JC has managed and led numerous compliance and operations departments in the energy industry with a record of successful implementation of compliance processes and operations for these entities. And now I'd like to hand the presentation off to JC. Thank you, JC.
Thank you, Jessica. And to piggyback on Jessica's comments, thank you all very much for being here today. I would like to tell you this is very interactive. Please type in your questions. I will address them. If you don't do that, this may end up having the potential to be kind of dry. So, as most presentations on NERC compliance can tend to be. So feel free to ask away. No dumb questions at all. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will address them for sure. So let's go ahead and get started. Today, we'll be talking about NERC functional registrations and the relationships they have with other functional entities. We'll talk about registration, functional model. We'll delve a good bit into the functional model. And reliability service functions, so what these entities do, and again, the relationships, how they interact with one another. All right, today we're going to discuss these five up at the top, functional registrations. They are primarily the real-time operations functional entities and the lion's share of the requirements contained in the NERC reliability standards apply to these functions. We will, in the future, hold other webinars to discuss the planning functions, so the PC, TP, and RP, and we'll have another one after that sometime in the future to discuss the distribution provider, and then the LSE, PSE, IA, and TSP functions as well. Oh, also, I'm going to go back. These three, the TOP, BA, and RC, when you register as those functions, there's also a certification process that is required. That's when NERC and the regional entity will, they'll put together a certification team, then they'll go on site, they'll look at a lot of evidence. It's a lot like an audit. So once you successfully complete that certification, then you'll be registered as that function, RCBA or TOP. So let's move right into the reliability coordinator roles and coordination and responsibilities. So really the RC is responsible for everything that happens from a reliability perspective on the BES within its purview. And I say when it is purview, that's called the RC area, and we'll get into that in just a moment. But some of the things that the RC will be responsible for is, like it says here, day-ahead analyses. So they will coordinate with the BA and the TOP and others if necessary. And with the BA and the TOPs, they receive their operating plans for the next day, especially on the BA side. They ensure that within those plans, there's nothing that's contained that will negatively impact a neighboring system. So a neighboring BA within that RC area or TOP area within the RC area. So let's talk about interchange for a moment. We're not going to talk too much about the TSP and IA functions today, but in those regions and markets that have a transmission service market, these will apply. So, the RC quite obviously is going to be responsible for all of the, the reliability consequences of any sort of systems. So the RC doesn't actually receive the tags, but it can curtail them. Again, it's responsible for everything within that RC area. So, it certainly can take actions to curtail tags or any sort of interchange that's happening. So the RC is responsible for mitigating emergency and transmission, mitigating energy and transmission emergencies. Sorry about that. They coordinate with the TOPs, BAs, and adjacent RCs. So within the RC area, the TOPs and the BAs will, be in constant contact and constant coordination with the reliability coordinator, and the RC has the obligation to coordinate with neighboring or adjacent RCs as well that are synchronously tied to the that RC area. So ensuring energy balance and interconnection frequency, that is the BA's main function. Also, it's the RC's function as well. So they with the balancing authority to ensure that the frequency of the interconnection is going to be in good shape and during in the day ahead and in real-time operations, that there's nothing going on the system that would cause any sort of frequency decline. So they coordinate with the balancing authority, obviously, the TOPs and the adjacent RCs. So the RC will also direct load shedding. They coordinate with the transmission operators and distribution providers for that service and system restoration. They're going to coordinate with everyone. The worst case scenario for system operation is black start system restoration. There's going to be a lot of coordination in that particular event. But during storm restorations or, if there's a fault on the system, the RC is very much involved in all of the large scale system restoration efforts. So we talked a little bit before about the RC area, what it is, and I'll borrow a little bit of language from the BOW standards. It's all the equipment and all the functional entities that reside within the boundaries of the reliability coordinator's footprint. So the RC area really is just that. There are potentially multiple TOPs within an RC area, multiple BAs within an RC area, obviously GOs, GOPs, and TOs within that same area as well. So the RC area is going to be very large in comparison to the other areas, which will be the BA area and the TOP area, and we'll talk about those as we get to those functional registrations. So you can see here the reliability standards that apply to the RC cover things like communications, emergency operations, facilities and maintenance, interconnection reliability operations. You can see that's a big one, and rightfully so, since the RC is responsible for ultimately for identifying an IROL and operating in a manner so that the interconnect reliability operating limit is not violated. In addition to those, we have the modeling standards, NERC, which applies pretty much to everybody, the personnel and training requirements, and protection and control. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat area, and we'll go ahead and get to those. So next, let's talk about balancing authority. So the BA has a lot of roles and responsibilities. The primary responsibility for a balancing authority is just frequency control. There are lots of ways to maintain frequency by adjusting generation in certain emergencies and events on the system. We'll find that there may not be enough generation to cover the load. And so at that point, other measures may be taken up to and including, load shed. And that's when the BA will coordinate with transmission operators, the RC, and potentially the TOPs as well. So for frequency control on a daily basis, the balancing authority coordinates with the generator operators and the adjacent BAs. So, the GOPs within its BA area and the adjacent BAs as well that are neighboring and tied. So regulation service deployment, again, coordination with other BAs. Economic dispatch and load following through the economic dispatch, that's coordinated with the adjacent BAs. Also, you're going to get the information you need to develop your plan from your GOPs within your BA area. And I apologize if I speak too much in acronym. It's just a function of this position, and it drives me crazy from time to time. So if you have any questions like, I don't know what that acronym is, feel free to ask away. So you can see here, the balancing authority has a lot of responsibilities. Maintaining area control error, or ACE, is one of those. Again, balancing load and generation, making sure the system frequency stays at 60 hertz or very, very close to it. So there are many times when you're going to have sort of a bundled registration. And this is the place in a lot of ISOs, you'll have a balancing authority and a reliability coordinator in the same company. So, company X is an RC and a BA, and maybe other functions as well. But it's not uncommon to have one single company or operating entity that serves as multiple functional registrations, functional entities. So we'll move on to the standards that apply to a BA, and you'll see, SIP, depending on your impact rating for SIP, you're probably not going to have a low impact balancing authority. So for the BA on the SIP side, for medium and high impact, which is probably going to be the bulk of the entities, SIP 2 through 13 will apply. If it is a low impact facility, and you'll get to that, we'll get to that in a moment with the GOs and GOPs, especially SIP 2 and 3 and 13 will apply to those. So the BA area is much like the RC area. It encompasses all generation within the metered boundaries of that balancing authority's footprint. Just almost like a smaller scale and scaled down version of the reliability coordinator's area. So if anyone has any questions about the BA or what it does, fire them away. Next, we'll move into the transmission operator registration. So for the TOP, basically what a TOP does is exactly what it sounds like. It operates the transmission facilities that are located within its TOP area. They will also develop RAS or SPS in conjunction with the planners and other transmission operators and TOs if needed. And we've talked a little bit about bundled operations with the BA. You'll also see the same thing with the transmission operator functional registration as well. So the bundled operations would be that most of the time a transmission owner, transmission operator, and transmission planner will be the same entity. So we will also see in some examples that the TOP, the RC, and the BA may also be the same entity. And the TOP is the last entity that will have an area that is defined. And it's also the last functional entity that requires a certification when you register. So you can see the transmission operator here. We talked about the TOP area. It's basically the exact same as the RC area and the BA area. It just applies to the transmission operator's purview. So much like the other functional registrations, you'll see SIP, again, high, mostly, some medium potentially. I don't know if you'll have SIP 2 through 13 that's applicable here for the TOPs. So the other standards, again, communications, emergency operations, facilities and maintenance, interconnect reliability operations, modeling, nuke, personnel and training, transmission operations, obviously, and the VAR standards. So a lot of these standards you can see apply with different requirements to different functional registrations as well. So let's move on to transmission owner. So what a transmission owner does, it owns transmission within a TOP's area. So a TO is mainly responsible for servicing lines, breakers, switches, transformers, any transmission elements or facilities that are located on their system. They ensure that the relays are programmed correctly and operate in the desired sequence. They coordinate with others during this process. Also coordination with planners and real-time operators to ensure facilities are operated correctly and within their operating limits, whether that be an SOL or, if need be, an IRO will that was, established by the RC or the TOP. So bundled operations here, it's no surprise, we talked about it earlier. The TO and the TOP and the TP many times are the same entity. If they're not, almost always you'll see the TO and the transmission planner are the same entity. They coordinate with the TO, with the TOP, generator owners, other TOs, and transmission planners. It's not letting me move forward. Okay, there we go. Sorry, I had a little bit of a technical difficulty there. My apologies. So the standards that are applicable to the TO function, and you'll notice there's no area here. There's not a defined TO area. It's basically just the transmission system that is owned by this company or this entity. So for TO, you'll have SIP 2 through 14, depending on the impact rating. Emergency operations, facilities, and maintenance. So you're having the same basic standard families here, but there are some additions here. So facilities and maintenance is very important for this particular functional entity, IRO and MOD. The personnel and training is also equally important, but the protection and control standards really come into play, and you can see there are a ton of them that apply here to the TO, and there are a lot of requirements contained therein. So the TO is a pretty compliance heavy function for sure. Okay, moving on to the generator operator, GOP. GOP simply operates the generation assets that is contracted to do that. So they coordinate with BAs, TOPs, and the GOs, obviously. There are bundled operations here. GOP and GO can be the same entity and many times are. Also, you have standalone generator owners and standalone generator operators as well. But many times you'll see that the GOP and the GO are the same entity. So they provide services like operations of the generators. They coordinate with the BA so that they contribute to balancing the generation with the load that's out there. They provide maintenance plans on an annual basis to the RC so that the RC knows what's coming out of service and can plan accordingly. When we're talking again about arranged interchange, you coordinate with the PSE in that respect. So again, we'll get into the PSE, the purchase selling entity functions, in a future webinar. Let's move on to the standards that are applicable to the GOP. And you've got your SIP, depending on impact rating again, either low 2, 3, and 13, or medium and high, SIP 2 through 13, and different requirements will be applicable in those other standards, depending on the high or the medium rating. So communications, emergency operations, IROs, PER 5 and 6, transmission operations, and voltage and reactive power. Any questions so far? Okay, excellent. So let's talk about the generator owner, and this is going to be the last functional entity that we discuss today. They own the generators, obviously, the generation facilities, and provide for the maintenance of those facilities. So the GO is responsible for the switch yard, much like the TO is. So all of these facilities that they own, the relay protection schemes that protect them and the rest of the bulk electric system from them, should they be faulted, as well as general maintenance of the equipment. So you'll see that both in the switch yard from time to time and all the way back from the GSU to the actual generator. Bundled operations, again, GOP and GO can be the same entity. That's perfectly normal, and it happens a lot, as we discussed earlier. So let's take a look at the standards that are applicable to the generator owner. Again, just like the others, the SIP, depending on the impact rating. I'm not going to go through that again. EOP for emergency operations there. Facilities and maintenance, much like the TO function, you'll have a lot of FAC standards here. That family is very well represented in both of the owners, TO and GO. Interconnect reliability operations and modeling. There are a lot of modeling requirements for a GO. As well as protection and control. You can see, again, much like the TO function, very heavy on the PRC family of standards. Transmission operations, transmission planning, this is the geomagnetic disturbance standard, and voltage and reactive. Now, I would like to sort of paint a picture, if I could, about how the different areas work. So the largest area will be the RC area. Within the RC area, you'll have multiple TOPs potentially, multiple BAs potentially, and definitely multiple transmission entities and generation entities. So all of those functional registrations really, their ultimate responsibility is to maintain reliability of the bulk electric system. And whoever sees that at the highest level is the reliability coordinator. So there is a lot of coordination there between the RC and all those entities within its purview. Moving down from that, the BA area encompasses all of the generation facilities within those the metered boundaries of that BA's region, as we talked about before. And that's a smaller subset. So that's a smaller area that fits into that reliability coordinator area. It's almost like a puzzle, and all these pieces fit together. And the overarching puzzle is the RC area. And same with the TOP area. It encompasses all of the transmission assets that it operates. And so that's how we arrive at the TOP area. That's pretty much it for the informative portion of this presentation. At this time, I'm, willing to answer any questions if you have them. Please do ask away. I would certainly like for our audience to, get some value out of this. Registration is sometimes confusing to a lot of people, as well as, the functional registrations that they don't touch every day. So there are many times that the different entities will coordinate with one another, and that will in effect lead to a more reliable bulk electric system. So if possible, go ahead and ask any questions, and we'll be very, very happy to answer those. One more note on registration: if you're involved in a new build, right, a new facility, you'll see that the NERC and the regional entities would really require you to start your registration process, if you don't require certification, 30 days prior to your commercial operations date, or the date where you're going to go operational. And that's pretty much it, guys. That's all I've got. If there are any questions, feel free to write them in the chat function, and we'll get to them. We'll hold off just a few more minutes to see if there are any questions, and if not, I'll give you back some of your time today. This went faster than I thought it was going to. All right, I'm going to mute for just a second and let everyone go ahead and compile any thoughts and write a question if you need to. It's a good question. How many reliability coordinators are there? I don't know off the top of my head the number, but I can get that pretty quickly, actually. Bear with me just 1 second and I'll let you know. So in North America right now, registered with NERC, there are 20 reliability coordinators. 19 of those are also registered as the planning coordinator. 17 of those are registered as a balancing authority also. And it's like 16 of those are also the TOP. So when we talked about bundled registration before, that's a good example there at the RC level. Thank you. It was a good question, Scott. So any other questions? All right. Thanks again, everyone. We really appreciate it. Hi, Luis. Yes, we can absolutely do that. We'll share the link where the presentation is going to be stored. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. It was my pleasure. I appreciate everyone's attention today and be on the lookout. We will be doing this again soon, and we'll also start covering other functional registrations as well as different standards as well. This is a periodic undertaking that we have here in the NERC department at EPE. And so we've already discussed some SIP issues with SIP Senior Manager. We had a webinar on that, as well as TPL 7. And so we will continue on with that. Just be on the lookout and let everybody know if you need any help with any sort of NERC compliance issues, whether it be engineering issues with the PRCs, mods, FACT standards, anything like that, all the way to, compliance, program development and program management, audit support, anything like that. We would be more than happy to speak with you about that. We have a great deal of experience in those areas, and we would love to talk with you about that. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Jessica, and I appreciate everyone's time today.
All right, thank you so much. And as I said in the chat, I will send out the webinar link when it's uploaded to the website to everyone who attended. And again, thank you so much. Have a good day, everyone.